So Mark Carney and the Liberals are planning to beef up the military, beef up our security, and beef up our defense of our sovereignty in Canada. And while that seems like a promising thing, because let's face it, our security around the borders, around, defending our territory has been very lacking. There is some bit of controversy involving who exactly they're looking towards when it comes to motivating individuals into protecting the nation of Canada. And of course, it comes to no surprise that, well, since we got this migrant problem, since we brought in a bunch of people, at a time when we shut everything down during the pandemic, doesn't sound like replacement, does it? They announced something like this. So this is from Juno News saying Canada is launching a new immigration category for skilled military recruits. Huh. Go figure. With job offers from the Canadian Armed Forces, including doctors, nurses, and pilots. Minister Lena Diab says it will help defend our sovereignty and keep Canadians safe. It is very, very interesting and very ironic that, they put this PSYOP on to say that, everything in America they're doing wrong and everything we're doing in Canada is correct. They put that PSYOP and brainwash people, did a massive psychosis for people to believe that everything in America is bad. But it's amazing how Canadian policies almost match identically to what they're doing in America, because as we know, one of the things that they mention about why they brought in so many illegal migrants is because military recruitments were low. And that's what one of the senators of, I think it was Chicago, was it, or Illinois, they mentioned about how it would be a great opportunity to bring in these illegals and use them for the military. Use them to, bang the gong and do our marching orders and do our dirty work of, overseas warfare. And now it seems like Canada's on that same path. So let's hear this announcement of bringing in these migrants that we poured in year after year after year, and now saying, hey, we'll give you an opportunity to, defend the sovereignty of our nation and provide adequate jobs in the military. Let's listen to this.
And finally, we are creating a new category for skilled military recruits to attract highly skilled foreign military applicants. Eligible.
Why don't they just say skilled people? Like, this is the thing that's so just troublesome for me, is they talk about how we need skilled people. They need skilled people. We need people with a certain amount of expertise and skills, and that's why they need, to bring in people. Well, why are we not training Canadians? Why are we not encouraging our Canadian youth that are the massively unemployed right now to say, hey, here's an opportunity to train and facilitate people into a promising future, instead of just throwing them under the bus? They're throwing them under the bus and saying, hey, you guys, you're just lazy. You're just lazy. That's why we had to bring in migrants to replace you at Tim Hortons, because you're just lazy. You're unappreciated. The fact that we want to scapegoat you and bring in foreign labor so we can pay them less and provide cheap labor and almost slave labor to the migrant. Like, it's so nerve-wracking. Oh, we need skilled people. So why are we not training people? Why are we not bringing people in this country that are desperately looking for a career, definitely looking for a job? Why are we not training these people? Makes no sense.
Recruits with a job offer from the Canadian Armed Forces, including doctors, nurses, pilots, can be invited to apply for permanent residence. They will be subject to the same security and all military requirements. This new category will support our government's commitment to strengthen our armed forces, to defend our sovereignty, and to keep Canadians safe.
So, just thinking on the top of my head, we go around the world, micromanage, we go into countries, we invade them, we do, horrendous work, not as bad as the United States, but we're also complicit of these same crimes. We go around the world making a mess, and then we harbor those people, the stragglers, into our country, the country that we went and occupied and destroyed their livelihoods, and tell them that, no, you're going to defend our country. Like, does that seem good to you? Does that seem good to you? This is what I said about when the United States said the same thing. Like, you are the occupying force that went into these countries, made it into the absolute hellhole that it is, and these people that were trying to escape and survive, you're now trying to recruit them and bring them into the military that destroyed their homelands. Do you think that's going to work out? Do you think that that straggler is going to be like, oh, yeah, I'm definitely going to join the dark side? Or are they going to be horrendously pissed off that, oh, the military that destroyed my homeland, that my family were killed, and my neighbors, my community that did no wrong, they were just illegally evaded because, hey, we're the world's police, we can do whatever we want. Think they're just going to be, okay, yeah, I'll join your military. I'll defend your sovereignty since, ours is destroyed. How well that goes.
This category and other priority categories supports Canada's defense industrial strategy, which Prime Minister Carney announced yesterday, by adding a range of workers critical to support our sovereignty and security. And finally,
so, again, see how well that goes. You're going to bring in a bunch of migrants from all different countries around the world that we or may have not been complicit in war crimes and activity that we shouldn't have been, deeply involved in foreign affairs that we should just get our hands off of, and bring our troops from foreign affairs back to our nation so that it can actually defend our sovereignty. I've been saying that from the start. He knows how that never gets around. That never gets a shine of light. No. Of course, we need, Canadian troops to still be with the Taliban and, all the groups. Oh, my God, we still got to secure Ukraine because, what if Russia wakes up in the middle of the night and decides to, do something to us? Like, it's just so absurd. So absurd. So here's a site called Barron's. I never heard of this till now. But they did a piece here. It says, Canada makes push to attract skilled migrants, including for defense. Again, I just find it a bit troublesome that you can't just train people here. Because there are people that are desperate. There are people that are willing to work for whatever job if it gives them a good wage, if it gives them promiscuity, if it gives them security, then they'll go towards it. So why are we not training these people? Why are we not encouraging our own citizens? Makes no sense. Canada's launched a new program to attract highly skilled immigrants, including specialized military recruits, as it moves to overhaul a system that the government says has become unsustainable. Canada has been for decades been a top destination for economic migrants from the developing world, but in 2024, then Prime Minister Justin Trudeau said too many people had been let in too quickly, straining the healthcare system and housing stocks. Exactly. Remember that? Remember he said he was going to take a slight pause. A slight pause because, again, we're not actually going to investigate why this happened or why we've been told that this is acceptable or why they brought in the most migrants at a time when everything was shut down and they poured people in to replace the workers that could have just went back to their jobs after the pandemic. They're not going to talk about that. They're not going to talk about Mark Wiseman, the former BlackRock advisor, now, part of Mark Carney's cabinet, saying we need to bring in these people, 100 million population by the end of the century. They're not going to question those people. Prime Minister Carney has echoed Trudeau's message, saying in October that his government was getting immigration under control while promising to bring in migrants with the skills needed to boost the Canadian economy facing unprecedented threats from U.S. tariffs. Just so hypocritical. You really, we're going to control migration, but at the same time, we need to bring in more migrants. It's just so absurd. It's so absurd. Just like how Donald Trump, when he was on Laura Ingram's program on Fox News, Mr. No Immigration, Mr. Close Down the Border, Mr. ICE is on patrol. He said that we need to bring in more migrants into the United States because apparently Americans are not skilled. So this is their excuse now. Oh, there's not enough skilled people. So instead of encouraging our citizens to be skilled opportunists and take advantage of no. They're going to just pour in migrants. They're going to pour in migrants, which I'm sure is also a factor for cheap labor. Because why else? Why else? We have eligible people right in our own backyard. Why do we need stragglers from other places of the world? Oh, that's right. Because they're not a Canadian citizen. We can pay them less. Carney on Tuesday announced $500 billion plan to upgrade Canada's military and defense-related infrastructure over the coming decade. A massive spending program, he says, will spur broad economic growth. His immigration minister, Lena Metlej-Diab, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, on Wednesday unveiled a new scheme, she said, that would help track the best talent to Canada. We are creating new category for skilled military recruits to attract highly skilled foreign military applicants, Diab said, specifying that the groups includes doctors, nurses, and pilots. This new category will support our government's commitment to strengthen our armed forces, to defend our sovereignty, and keep Canadians safe. Again, good luck with that, because how do you think that's going to factor out that you're going to bring in people from countries that we have intervened, that we have micromanaged, that we have tried to, do our schematics for geopolitical reasons? How do you think it's going to go well when they realize that, oh, you're going to recruit me into your military and do your dirty work after what you did to my country? How do you think that's going to work? So here's Mark Carney announcing this plan to modernize the armed forces, meaning that there's also going to be AI. That's the code word there. When they say modernize, that means, hey, we're getting contracts by the tech bros, like Palantir and Microsoft and Elon Musk and Skynet. That's what he means by that. We're going to modernize their air forces. It's going to be AI controlled. And there's new alarming investigations coming out that AI is not that practical when it comes to armed forces, especially when it gets things wrong constantly and sometimes, and may frequently, if it gets involved into, say, weapons, then it might just kill someone at random without even knowing. That's kind of sketchy. Plans include $180 billion in procurement, $290 in security infrastructure. We know that, but here's what he said in regards to it.
The various assumptions which have defined Canadian policies in terms of defense and foreign affairs, these assumptions have been completely upended. And in Canada, we are confronted with many variables and for instance, we have the opportunities in our Arctic, but we also have the attacks in our cyberspace. And so the nature of warfare is changing because of the proliferation of drones and autonomous weapon systems as well. This is our purpose. So danger is closer to our borders, and this is a more divided world. And Canadian leadership will be defining itself not only through the strength of our values, but also the value of our strength. And this strength must be targeted, reinforced, and Canadian, and be Canadian. And this is why immediately after the election, our federal government is carrying out an ambitious mission, reinforcing our armed forces, equip them, and reinvest in them.
2% NATO target by this spring, a full decade ahead of the previous schedule.
So, there's so many things there. I love how he says that, this is for Canada, built by Canada, to protect Canada, as we're bringing in migrants to do that. Like, you're intentionally misleading people with that. Also, I just feel like, after 20 plus years of hearing the same messaging, the post 9/11 scare tactics, ice of world out there, you're supposed to be scared all the time, fear mongering, cyber attacks, blah, 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 terror. I'm just getting sick of it. Getting so sick of it. Like, the real terror that's happening, that's afflicting Canadians, is the ones that's already in our Canadian cities. I'm talking about, the human trafficking that we just discussed, the drugs, the epidemics, the crime. Like, that's what we should be dealing with. But instead, here we are trying to micromanage the world and saying that we got to be committed to all these security alliances, how we secure our partnership with NATO. Because as you know, NATO is involved in the Ukraine war. They're deeply involved in foreign affairs aggressions that are highly illegal, highly speculative, and highly disregarded by majority of the public. Like, no one wants these interventions to happen unless you are completely brainwashed by the mainstream media. So why do you keep harping on this? Why do you keep doing this and expecting people to believe this? Like, it's the same messaging over and over again. Well, these are dark and challenging times. There's fear afoot, and it's a changing world, and we got to adapt. Just so crazy. It's so crazy just hearing the same things over and over again for the last 20 plus years. And this is what's a bit concerning about, with NATO, because I hear that all the time, that we're not committed to NATO enough, that we're not, meeting their marks. Well, let's not fool ourselves and remind ourselves that NATO is the reason why we're dealing with Ukraine, a country that just a short while ago, no one really recognized, no one really cared, no one had any interest about it. But all of a sudden, now we got to be highly invested in it. We got to protect them because it secures our sovereignty for some reason. But we know that Ukraine is highly corrupted. It's one of the most corrupted nations in Eastern Europe. We know that there's a money laundering scheme. We know that this guy Zelensky is a massive fraud. He's a puppet and a stooge for neo-Nazis and for the NATO alliance that falsified this war. They manufactured aggression to use Ukrainians as proxies because they want another Cold War with Russia. So why are we committed to NATO again? Why are we committed to this again? Why aren't we just, focusing on defense of our people in our sovereign land? I don't understand. It's just so crazy. But they'll just tell you it's globalism. You got to do it because it's part of the globe. We're a nation in the globe. It's so stupid. But anyway, Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney in Ukraine says he can't rule out sending peacekeepers. So that's what's so controversial. That's what needs to be addressed. That when he says that he's going to advance our alliance with NATO, this should be on the back burner for everybody. That this means that there's a potentiality that NATO will point the finger at us and say, you're sending troops over to Ukraine. Because NATO are the demagogues that rule over countries. It's not an alliance. They are an aggressive cartel of military contractors that demand countries to give them money, to give them intelligence, and to send their people, their personnel, over to do their dirty works. Because it has nothing to do with us. It has nothing to do with us. It has nothing to do with our safety or security. And meanwhile, this is happening. But nothing to fix our failing healthcare system and no drug treatment programs to tackle widespread addiction. Mark-managed decline Carney has plenty of tax dollars to send overseas to suck up to NATO, but nothing for Canadians. I mean, what can I say? That's what you get with a central banker. That's what you get when you get a puppet from the World Economic Forum. That's what you get. They don't care about you. There's no interest in you. There's no interest in Canadians. There's no interest in the country. That's why he lied to you and saying that this is for the benefit of Canadians, even though it's sending migrants. We need skilled migrants to occupy these roles, not Canadians, not eligible people within this country. It's an outward. It's just a complete farce. Complete farce. And meanwhile, this is how Mark Carney and the Liberals are treating our own veterans. You know, the ones that actually put their lives out and almost sacrifice themselves to protect us. This is how veterans get treated in this country. Former CAF veteran and Paralympian Christine Gauthier was offered maid in writing by Veterans Affairs Canada after campaigning for a wheelchair ramp to her private residence. Canada's new euthanasia laws carry upsetting Nazi-era echoes, warns experts. So, the soldiers that were already in the Canadian military that, did their service, and we applaud them, and we thank them, so we say. This is the treatment they get from the government because of a wheelchair ramp, because they got paralyzed or they got injured in the line of service. And this is how they treat them. They say, well, your time is up. We don't need you anymore. And I guess since you're useless, even though that you're a Paralympian, on top of being a veteran, we're going to send you to the slaughterhouse. We're going to send you to the maid program. That's how crazy and sinister this is. At the same time, they're running around saying that we need skilled migrants. So again, let's see how well that works. Let's see how well that works. That you're going to bring in foreigners to work in our military after all the years that we have been just invading countries and complicit in war crimes. And it's funny that Mark Carney is so drenched about committing NATO goals. Well, this is what the UN is saying. So Ottawa shows no signs of limiting MAID, that the program you just saw for a veteran who's completely healthy, just needs a wheelchair ramp. They want to send her to the slaughterhouse. Ottawa shows no signs of limiting MAID after a UN panel calls for reversal. So you'll listen to NATO, but you won't listen to the UN when they're calling out your government specifically that you are illegally just doing a complete wipeout of the population. Like, how sinister. How sinister. And you're doing it to veterans. Veterans that are healthy. They just need reassurance because they have a disability. Because of their line of work. Because of them in duty. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. And that's what's so heartbreaking about the fact that they can go on stage and say, well, we'll just get skilled migrants to do it. Because they know that they screwed over Canadians when they toured, and that's why they're getting low recruitment rates, because Obviously, young people are looking at this and going, I don't want to be a part of this. I don't want something to happen to me. I would have to go back home, get mistreated, get mishandled, and then Veterans Affairs for them to just say, well, you just sign up for MAID then. Because they don't care about you. None of these people care about you. Mark Carney and the liberal establishment, the parliamentarian, just do not give a damn. That's why they're just able to do this. That's why they're able to just go forth with these horrendous policies without any hesitation, without any consultation, without any sort of measures from the public interest. Because public interest, they don't want to get involved in Ukraine. They don't want to get involved. They want to focus on back here. And a lot of people agree with the same sentiment that, hey, all these troops we have overseas, let's bring them back home. Bring them back home so we can focus on our defense. Focus on us. Focus on securing our border so they're closer to their families, so that they're not in harm's way, so they don't come back in a body bag or be sent home with a disability to the point that they're just going to be sent to a maid slaughterhouse. Maybe that should be the conversation instead of this mealy-mouthed mayhem of, oh, we're doing security, but migrants have to come in. Unbelievable.